Hey, chances are if you're watching this video, you're looking for some good games to play, but you're not willing to break the bank. Well, you're in luck because we've got about 15 random recent games that we've chosen that are pretty dirt cheap. The rule was we tried to keep it around 25 bucks and under for games releasing mostly in 2020 and some in 2019. All the games we mention and talk about will be linked at various places down in the description below. Of course, clicking those links may help this show, but of course these game prices are North America and they are subject to change. We've made this video at the end of February 2021. With all those disclaimers out of the way, let's get started off with number 15 and talk about Ace Combat 7, which roughly usually comes in at about 20 bucks on Amazon for the major platforms, and it's worth checking out if you haven't already, especially if you're someone who's maybe not necessarily into military aerial dogfight style games. There's more to the Ace Combat games than meets the eye. There's a bit more of a Japanese style, a flair of storytelling, cool action set piece moments, great music. You will be genuinely surprised by this game, even if you maybe only like some Japanese games or if you vaguely like Top Gun. For 20 bucks, us personally, we think Ace Combat is a steal. It also has a little bit of a VR mode for the PlayStation version if you're into that type of thing. Considering it's lower price too, you don't have much to lose. You could give it a shot. Next, over at number 14, we have Resident Evil 3. This released in 2020, and although it's definitely not as long or as compelling as Resident Evil 2's remake was, it's still a pretty solid experience, and if you get it for a lower price, it's definitely worth jumping in, especially if you didn't experience the game when it was initially released on PlayStation 1. So we've seen this at around 30 bucks on PS4, floating around 24 bucks on Amazon for Xbox, but also worth noting, $19.79 on PSN. So for under 20 bucks, we think the experience is worth checking out. Fighting the Nemesis himself is pretty cool. It's very cinematic. And again, the most important thing, like if you just haven't experienced the Resident Evil games before, we ultimately think you should. Even if this remake isn't as strong, you still owe it to yourself to shoot some zombies and fight some monsters and just experience Jill Valentine's story. Over at number 13, we have Devil May Cry 5, which usually comes in at around 25 bucks for all the platforms and PC, and that's a steal. Devil May Cry 5 is really awesome. The story's a little all over the place for me personally, but as a longtime fan, I still love the characters. I really love the gameplay here. It's probably the best it's ever been. The music is kick-ass, and it has next-generation console upgrades. So for 25 bucks, you're really getting away with murder here. Like a lot of Devil May Cry games, you get to swap between a bunch of different weapons that really alter your playstyle, but also you're playing as multiple characters that all play completely differently from one another. So there's a lot of mechanical fun depth here to the combat that you're gonna want to check out, dude. Now down to number 12, if you're looking for something a bit different, maybe something you've never heard of, Bright Memory is 10 bucks on Steam on PC. This game actually serves as a precursor to Bright Memory Infinite, which you may remember was revealed when Xbox was kind of revealing all the Xbox Series X games. The sequel is going to be like a next-gen Xbox and PC game and all that, but if you want to see where it all started, where it was kind of developed with a smaller team, it is very much a flashy, fun, quick, first-person shooter. And although it isn't necessarily infinite like the sequel is gonna be, it's 10 bucks. So if you're curious about the next game, you can check it out here. Next, over at number 11, we have Star Wars Squadrons, which for the console versions has been floating around at 24 bucks on Amazon. And this is a game you should absolutely check out. It was already lower priced to begin with, so as a pro tip, I do want to say keep an eye on this one because the price might drop even more fairly soon, but I think whatever you spend on it, it is worth it if you like spaceships and you like Star Wars, because this is a damn good experience. People have said that EA essentially just ripped the flight combat out of Battlefront 2. That's not the case here. I think this has a lot of mechanical depth. It's way more of an actual flying simulation game. It could be pretty challenging, and it's got a cool little single-player campaign story with some nice Star Wars references and a fairly solid multiplayer suite. It may not keep you busy forever, you know, it's not the next Apex Legends or anything like that, but it is a fun experience. Not to mention, if you're getting it for 25 bucks on the PlayStation version, you have access to the PSVR version of the game. You can play through the entire game, experience it all in VR. If that's not a value, especially for VR fans, I don't know what is, man. Next, over at number number 10, we have Days Gone, which we've seen sitting at around 21 bucks to 25 bucks physically on Amazon. Pro tip, it still seems like it's pretty expensive everywhere else, like Walmart, GameStop, Best Buy. But if you can find it for around 20, 25 bucks, it is absolutely worth it. It's an open world, PlayStation exclusive game with an interesting story, some pretty great characters that the game is not afraid to dive deep into, and some fairly fun zombie combat. We think the best part about this game is some of the motorcycle stuff in terms of keeping it alive and upgrading it. Yes, it does fall to a lot of the trappings of other open world games, but still the setting, the story, the characters, the vibe does make it stand out, and at this price, we think it's definitely worth a try. Next, over at number 9, something a bit different that we did want to recommend. Stop us if you've heard this one because some people are crazy into it. Phasmophobia. On Steam, it's like 14 bucks right now, and it is an incredibly fun 4-player multiplayer experience. Essentially, it's cooperative ghost hunting, and it's not goofy. It can actually be pretty tense and pretty scary. The game is best played with friends that you can communicate with, a group you got a good rapport with. The ghosts are reactive, the technology behind the game is interesting, and it's fun to play around with it. And really, it's a cheap blast. In terms of like multiplayer, fun, mayhem type stuff, on this list, for like 13, 14 bucks, it's probably the best you're gonna get.
Next up at number 8, we have Borderlands 3, which for the console platforms, you can usually score for around 20, 25 bucks on Amazon. On the PC side right now, it is a little above our range at $30 on the Epic Games Store, but it's worth noting that the game more recently launched on Steam, and it was just on sale for 20 bucks. The sale's actually over. I'm sorry. We were a little late, but I would say expect it to go on sale more often soon. Borderlands 3 is a newer game, but it's been out for a minute, and with content coming out for it, they probably want it in more people's hands anyway. So keep your eyes peeled. It is a good Borderlands game. It's what you want. You got the looting, you got the shooting, you got the playing solo or with friends, and yeah, it'll be linked below.
Next, over at number 7, we have the Dark Pictures games, the Dark Picture anthology games. As of right now, I believe there's only 2 that are out, both Man of Medan and Little Hope, and essentially these are fun, playable, cinematic horror experiences. If you remember the PlayStation exclusive Until Dawn, it's by that studio, so it's got that type of thing. I do personally think these entries are nowhere near as strong as Until Dawn, but I think if you're a horror enthusiast, there's still some stuff in this that you might want to see, and both the Xbox and PlayStation versions of both games are sitting at 20 bucks. Next, over at number 6, we have Death Stranding. The PS4 version of the game is under 25 bucks on Amazon, and it's worth noting that if you shop at GameStop, we have seen it drop in price there too. Still, keep an eye on it, and you know, for 25 bucks, Death Stranding is a good experience, especially if you were one of the people that read early reviews of the game and heard about how different it is. Maybe you were a little turned off, maybe you didn't want to commit 60 bucks to it. Well, now for 25 bucks, if you're still curious, you're gonna take less of a hit. Like, it's less of a risk, you know? I really like this game, I really enjoyed it. It's very unique, it's got some issues, but overall the creativity I was all about, but I am also a Hideo Kojima fanboy. I think we all here are at gameranx. That's just a little disclaimer, but hey, it's interesting, it's unlike anything else you'll play, and yeah. Next at number 5, if you're looking for more of an anime-themed Souls-like, Code Vein is an extremely underrated game, and it's under 25 bucks on Amazon. Also worth noting, if you have Game Pass or you were considering picking up Game Pass, it's gonna be on Xbox Game Pass soon too. Code Vein is cool, man. It's like a post-apocalyptic setting, but there are vampires and cool magic blood-powered attacks, a fairly robust character creator, and a story that has some depth to it. It gets a little wild, but it's interesting. Thankfully, the most important thing, the core gameplay is really fun and engaging, and of course, challenging. So if you're looking for something good, Code Vein, put it on your list. Down to number 4, for the creative person in your life, Dreams for PlayStation 4, which released last February, is 15 bucks on PSN. If you're looking for something different, if you're looking for something that you can really dive into, sink your teeth into, learn something, and make something, Dreams is an incredible platform. We've made a few videos on it in the past, but just the amount of things that people have created with this game, the depth in terms of creating in-game renderings, levels, interactive areas, full little game experiences, it's unreal what you can do and what you can accomplish with what Media Molecule has built here. For 15 bucks, you are getting access to an amazing tool set. You really can't deny it. Down to number 3, look, Nintendo Switch games, official Nintendo games, do not go on sale often. They do not drop in price. So it's often very difficult to recommend some of the main Nintendo Switch games, but we do have a third-party Capcom game, and that is the excellent Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. This is currently $15 on Switch if you're watching this video when it uploads, instead of its usual $30 price. And for $15, you are getting an absolutely massive action RPG that is a ton of fun. The character builds are great, the action and the combat is fun, the world building is interesting. It's essentially a fantasy RPG with a good Japanese spin on it, and people are obsessed with this game for good reason. And Switch is honestly a pretty good platform to play it on. It's an older game, but the Switch port is more recent, and we think it's worth checking out if you've never been exposed to Dragon's Dogma at all. But down to number 2, we gotta recommend the excellent Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. On PSN, this is $20. We've also seen it for $20 on Steam, and it's worth noting that it's also on Xbox Game Pass. At this point, there's not too much more to say about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It's just a fun, single-player Star Wars adventure. We're always advocating, we're always begging for more cinematic, fun, linear single-player games, and we got a good Star Wars one here. Respawn did a great job. They make good games. The combat is fun and engaging. The story's pretty interesting. It's still got some glitches and bugs here and there, but overall, it's a cool experience if you like Star Wars. Not only that, this is another game on this list that has recently gotten some next-generation updates. Like, it can just play better on the next-generation consoles, so for like $20, that's a really good value. Down to number 1, we have Outer Wilds. No, not the Outer Worlds, Outer Wilds, the more underrated one. It was released on Steam June of 2020, and it's usually sitting at around $24.99. It's also on PSN, so if you're looking at the next PSN sale, maybe consider keeping an eye on that. Really, wherever you play it, whatever platform you play it on, it is an underrated space exploration game that is incredibly unique and frankly, unlike anything you've ever played. We don't really want to spoil it, but we'll say, like, if you're into stuff like No Man's Sky, but you want a little bit more of a direction, a goal, something directly to work for, and quite a bit of a challenge with how you explore space, Outer Wilds is it, man, especially when you couple it with just a really cool visual style, the atmosphere, the graphics. It's just a very chill and also, I guess, kind of stressful experience if you think about it. Seriously, if you haven't checked this one out yet, it's popped up on Game of the Year lists a lot last year. The Outer Wilds is worth it. Those are some games we can recommend. We do have one more though, a little bonus one for you. Persona 4 Golden. It's considered one of the best JRPGs ever, and it was released on PC in 2020, on Steam to be exact, and it's $20. For $20, you were getting a hell of a JRPG, an absolutely massive one, and we highly recommend it. Those are some cheap games that we rounded up we thought we'd recommend that are fairly recent and got some good prices. But of course, there are way more out there, and it all depends on where you live. So we want to hear from you guys down in the comments what you picked up cheap and what you're really enjoying. Definitely let us know, and definitely let other viewers know so they have some tips. But hey, if you guys enjoyed this and maybe we helped recommend a new game, clicking the like button helps us out. We would really appreciate that. But if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell because we put out videos every single day. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.